In the early 1990s, a geologist named Joseph Kirschvink was staring at a problem almost everyone else had decided to ignore. In rocks, scattered all over the world, in places that had once sat on the equator, in the warm tropical heart of the planet, he kept seeing the unmistakable signature of ice, ancient glaciers, frozen debris, the fingerprints of a deep freeze laid down in the hottest part of the Earth. It made no sense. Ice does not form at the equator. It would be like finding a glacier's rubble in the middle of the Sahara. For decades, geologists had noticed these strange tropical ice deposits and mostly looked the other way, filing them under, "We'll figure it out later." But Kirschvink refused to look away, and he proposed an answer so extreme that many of his colleagues thought he had gone too far. His idea was simple and staggering. What if the ice at the equator was there because the entire planet had frozen? Not just the poles, not a normal ice age. The whole Earth, oceans and all, from pole to pole, locked solid in ice. He gave it a name that stuck. He called it Snowball Earth. It sounded absurd. A frozen planet should stay frozen forever. A dead white ball drifting through space. How could the Earth possibly freeze that completely and then come back to life? For years, the idea was doubted, argued over, dismissed by many. And yet, piece by piece, the evidence kept falling in Kirschvink's favor. Because he was right. There really was a time when the entire Earth turned to ice. So just how cold did our planet get? How did a warm blue living world become a solid ball of ice? Colder than almost anywhere in the solar system? And here's the deepest question of all, the one that nearly proved Kirschvink wrong, and that we will come back to at the end. If the whole Earth froze over, oceans and all, how did it ever thaw again, when every other frozen world in the solar system stayed frozen forever? To find out, we have to go back hundreds of millions of years to the coldest the Earth has ever been. Before we go back, a quick word. If you're new to Ashfall Earth, this is a channel about the deep history of our restless planet, the frozen worlds and lost ages buried in the rock beneath us. If that sounds like your kind of thing, the single most useful thing you can do is hit subscribe. It genuinely helps a new channel more than you'd think, and you won't miss what comes next. Right, let's go back to the coldest day in the history of the world. To understand how close the Earth came to freezing forever, it helps to look at the worlds that did. Out in the cold, distant reaches of our solar system, far from the warmth of the sun, there are worlds of permanent ice. Jupiter's moon, Europa, is one. Beneath its cracked, frozen shell lies a shell of solid ice that has never melted. Saturn's moon, Enceladus, is another, a brilliant white ball of ice reflecting the faint, distant sunlight. These are frozen worlds, and they have one thing in common. Once a world like this ices over completely, it tends to stay that way, forever. The white ice reflects away what little warmth reaches it, and the cold locks in, permanent and absolute. Keep those frozen moons in your mind, because a little over 700 million years ago, the Earth was about to become one of them. And by rights, it should never have come back. To picture that ancient world, forget the planet you know. This was a period geologists call the Cryogenian, a name that literally means the birth of cold. There were no plants on land, no animals anywhere, no forests, no grass. Life was still simple, mostly microbes and algae drifting in the seas. The land was bare rock. And the continents, crucially, were mostly clustered together near the equator, in the warm middle of the planet. That arrangement, strangely enough, was about to help freeze the entire world. Here's how you freeze a planet. The Earth is kept warm by greenhouse gases in its air, especially carbon dioxide, which trap the sun's heat like a blanket. Take away that blanket and the warmth leaks out into space. And around this time, the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere began to fall. The likely reason lies with those equatorial continents. Bare rock, sitting in the warm, wet tropics, weathers fast. And the weathering of rock quietly pulls carbon dioxide out of the air. With all that fresh rock baking in the tropical rain, the planet slowly stripped away its own warming blanket. The world began to cool, and once it started, a terrifying trap sprang shut. This is the same trap that keeps those distant moons frozen, and it hangs on one simple fact. Ice is white, and white reflects sunlight. As the world cooled, ice spread from the poles, but bright white ice, instead of soaking up the sun's warmth like dark ocean and dark rock, bounces it straight back out into space. So the more ice forms, the more sunlight is reflected away, and the colder the planet gets. And the colder it gets, the more ice forms, reflecting away even more sunlight, making it colder still. Cooling makes ice. Ice makes cold. Cold makes more ice. Scientists believe that once the ice sheets pushed past a critical point, roughly the latitude of the modern tropics, there was no stopping it. The feedback ran away completely. And in perhaps as little as 1,000 years, the blink of a geological eye, the ice raced down from the shrinking warm zones, swallowed the last open water, and slammed shut over the whole planet. The Earth had become a snowball, exactly like Kirschvink said. Try to picture what that meant. The oceans, frozen over perhaps to a depth of 1 kilometer or more. The continents buried under ice. Almost no open water anywhere on the surface. The entire planet white from pole to pole, reflecting the light of a sun that was, back then, slightly fainter than it is today. Global average temperatures may have crashed to somewhere around minus 50 degrees Celsius. In the frozen heart of it, the surface of the Earth was as cold and as dead as one of those distant ice-bound moons. This was the coldest the Earth has ever been. Not an ice age with life thriving in the warm gaps. This was total. A living planet turned, it seemed, into a corpse of ice. And it did not last for years or centuries. It lasted for millions of years. The Earth may even have frozen over more than once, in separate deep freezes, each one entombing the world for staggering lengths of time. And this is the exact moment Kirschvink's own idea nearly fell apart, because his critics had one devastating question, the same question those frozen moons seemed to answer. If the Earth froze this completely, if it truly became a white ball reflecting away the sunlight, then how did it ever escape? Europa didn't. Enceladus didn't. A fully frozen world should stay frozen forever. By the logic of the snowball itself, once the Earth iced over, it should have been game over. A dead white planet for all time. So how are we here? How did the ice ever break? The answer is the thing that makes Earth different from every frozen moon in the solar system. And it was hiding underground the entire time. Fire. Unlike those small, cold, dead moons, the Earth is a large planet with a hot, restless interior that never stops. And even with the whole surface frozen solid deep inside, the Earth's fires kept burning. Volcanoes kept erupting, punching up through the ice, and they kept doing one crucial thing. They kept pumping carbon dioxide into the sky. Here's the beautiful trick of it. Normally, that carbon dioxide would be pulled back out of the air by rain and by the weathering of rock. But on a frozen planet, there was almost no liquid water and almost no exposed rock. The process that removes carbon dioxide had ground to a halt, so the volcanoes kept adding it, and nothing took it away. Across millions of years, carbon dioxide built up in that frozen sky to staggering levels, far higher than anything today. The warming blanket was being stitched back together, thicker and thicker, while the planet lay helpless under its ice. This is what Europa and Enceladus never had. A powerful, living engine of fire beneath the ice, slowly loading the atmosphere with warmth. The frozen moons had no way out. The Earth was building one the whole time, until, at last, it was enough. The greenhouse effect grew so overwhelming that it finally beat the reflecting power of all that ice, and the great melt began. Now the runaway trap ran in reverse. As the ice started to melt, it exposed dark ocean and dark rock, which drank in the sun's heat, which melted more ice, which exposed more dark surface. The thaw, like the freeze, may have raced to completion at astonishing speed. The Earth swung from the deepest cold it has ever known into a searing, humid hothouse, as all that built up carbon dioxide drove the temperature violently up. The Earth had done the impossible. It had frozen over as completely as a dead moon, and then it had come back to life. And that single difference, the fire within, is the reason you are here and Europa is still a silent ball of ice, because of what happened next. Not long after the last great snowball melted, in geological terms, life did something it had never done before. It became complex. The first large, complex animals, the strange, soft-bodied ediacarans, appear in the fossil record in the aftermath of the deep freeze. And not long after them came the great explosion of animal life that built the entire modern living world. Some scientists suspect this is no accident, that the brutal stress of the freeze and the violent hothouse thaw that followed, the shattering and reshaping of the whole planet, may have shoved life toward becoming bigger, bolder, and more complex than ever before. If that is true, then everything that came afterward, every animal, every plant, every creature that has ever walked or swum or flown, and in the end, you may owe its existence to the time the Earth froze into a ball of ice, and then, unlike any other frozen world we know of, refused to stay dead. Which brings us back to Joseph Kirschvink. And his idea that so many thought was too extreme. He was right. The rocks at the equator really were the fingerprints of a frozen planet. The Earth really did turn to a snowball. And the very thing that made his critics doubt him, the impossibility of a frozen world ever thawing, turned out to have an answer written in fire deep inside the Earth. So the next time you shiver through a hard winter and think it could not possibly get any colder, remember the Cryogenian. Remember that there was a time when the whole planet, oceans and all, was locked in ice from pole to pole, as cold and as still as a dead moon in the outer dark, for millions of years on end. That was the coldest the Earth has ever been. And the truly astonishing thing is not just that it happened. It is that our restless, fiery living planet did what no frozen moon has ever done. It froze completely, and then it came back. You've been watching Ashfall Earth. If this changed the way you think about a cold winter's day, consider subscribing, and we'll take you back even further next time.